You're listening to a DM podcast.
Welcome to Over the Back Fence. I'm Di Edwards.
I'm Nicola Jackel, and we're buddies of nearly 4 decades. And yes, we actually do happen to share a back fence.
We do. We love parties, people, inspirational stories, and honestly, making the most out of life.
So join us as we open our hearts, share our stories, and hear from some of the most inspirational people in the world. And have a laugh along the way.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Hey, it's a Monday, Jodie. And how have you been?
It actually is.
It is a Monday. It's the start of a brand new week.
It is. I never used to like Mondays. It's weird. I was like, work or school. Just growing up, it's like, Monday. Isn't that song? I hate Mondays.
Actually, you might even break into a song because Jodie loves to break into a song.
Well, I do. Watch out. Watch out, everyone. Block your ears. Get your earmuffs on. But seriously, I have to honestly say now I embrace Mondays. I just embrace the fact that I can wake up and breathe.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, I'm like you. I love a Monday, like now, and especially with the podcast. I love listening to our new podcast. It always lands in everyone's ears on a Monday.
Yes.
And it's good because they're all about their changes. There's all different ones there. And I tell you what, there's a few little changes.
We've had a few changes in our lives too, haven't we? We noticed one this morning when we pulled up in our cars.
Yes.
We noticed.
Well, I noticed. This is quite funny. So we drove in separately today, and so I'm ringing up Di, and I've got about half an hour to get to the studio. And Di's going, I'm here. I've got a great park. And I'm saying, Di, you never used to get to places early, did you?
Tell them about me at the airport.
And that's you're saying, I think it is, as I'm getting older, I'm getting to places earlier. And I'm saying, wow.
You remember I made that plane by 1 second. I closing the door, my foot went dunk.
Yes.
In the host, you're kidding. But I used to just in the wing of a prayer and this, just slam bam, breathing the whole time to get anywhere. Now I'm like, oh God, I can't be late.
I know.
Now that's interesting. I think it's a great thing though with age, that sort of change. So leading into change.
Well, leading into change, Lossing, I don't know whether that change has happened to me yet because I still sometimes run.
No, Nicola's still Speedy Gonzales.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way there.
You now.
But we love change. Now, talk about change. We have got the queen of changes here in our studio at the back fence. We've got Laura and we've got Cathy, and they're two beautiful women. They're mothers, they're journalists, they're friends. They met as journalists on Mamma Mia, working in the workplace there. Friends, they've now left and they've got their own potty called The Change, which we want to hear more about. So welcome
Laura.
So much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Over the Back Fence, actually.
Thank you.
We're just leaning on the fence. I think there's so much we want to chat about today, so much juicy fab stuff. But I think we'll just start with, as Nicola was just saying, working with Mamma Mia. I mean, for those that are listening that don't know what Mamma Mia is, I mean, it's an incredible media company that Mia Friedman set up with an audience of 6.5 million women that listen every month. She has the largest women's podcast network in the world. It's remarkable. And it's a news, lifestyle, opinion online hub. And both Cathy and Laura that you're listening to, we're interviewing today, worked with Mia. And my first question is, what was it like working and getting to know Mia Friedman?
Oh, it was lovely. It was it was a really great experience. It was a fabulous time. Both of us applied for a program called the Encoreship. Essentially, it was, a program for women to get back into the workforce in a meaningful way.
Right.
And
such
a
great
program. Amazing. And Laura and I are massive advocates for the Encoreship program. And when they were interviewing, they came to the final two and they couldn't decide between us, so they asked us to job share, which was amazing.
And is that the first time you'd met each other?
We were not. Yeah. We hadn't met before that, so it was great.
And I remember because when they told me Cathy's name, because I said, well, so who am I going to be job sharing with? And straight away I'm stalking on the Instagram, who is this person I'm going to be job sharing with? And I kind of saw her face. I thought, I just know we're going to be mates. I just knew it.
And was there much Mia intervention with you two with respect to the globe?
We didn't get to work directly with Mia very much. At the start, we had some podcast training. We got to sit in on the Out Loud records.
And no filter once or twice.
Yeah, so it was a really exciting experience sort of to kick off with. And then we worked, I guess over time, we kind of just worked more closely with the editorial team as we were part of mostly the writing team. We did a bit of podcasting. We did a bit of social media. Just a fun experience.
It's great admiration for the leader of the
absolutely
the troops.
Yeah.
And we got to, I was a guest, I think, on a few of the podcasts.
Yeah, that was so fun.
And it was
She's very generous like that. We saw her the other night, didn't we?
We went to the show.
Yeah,
we went to the show.
She's
fun.
good.
And I love it how
Laughed out loud.
Yeah, that's right. Doing shows, there's the other one. Was it Lisa and Sarah doing their disco one?
Yeah,
and,
disco
it's
club.
just
Yeah.
cool that it just
Yeah.
podcasts is sort of getting broader and broader
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
And
Love
it
it.
reaches a different audience. Like, not everybody has time to sit down and read articles and things like that. So you can reach a totally different audience with podcasting, which is fabulous. And it was very exciting. And when we started at Mamma Mia, it was in the middle of COVID. So we were remote.
yeah.
I was going to
So,
say,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and
Wow.
I'm in Wollongong and Laura is in
Newcastle.
Wow.
So we hadn't met in person for, I don't know,
That's
4 or 5
bizarre.
months. And
Yeah.
we were working together and
Online only. Yeah.
online only.
Right.
And so then we
What
got
an
it.
interesting way
It's so
to go.
interesting just
Yeah.
for our international listeners
old
too.
COVID.
Those cities are sort of fairly fair apart too. They're not actually in Sydney, either one of them. So
No.
just sort
Yeah.
of like, for our international listeners.
Yeah,
But
so
how
we're sort
cool.
of 2.5 hours in each direction from Sydney. So I'm 2.5 hours north and Cathy's sort of
Yeah.
2-ish hours south.
Yeah.
So it was lovely when we finally did get to meet. And I remember
Would have been like, wow.
yeah, it was like, yeah.
It really was.
We stayed in a hotel.
I
we
can
went out
only
for dinner,
imagine.
and it was really
Oh,
lovely.
one more bottle of wine, please. What a hoot. And what about your families? Like, being both journos? How's the family fit in with all of this? Being the working mama?
Yeah, I think it's just like a never-ending juggle. So my kids are 13 and 7, so they're still quite young, and they need me a bit. So
A bit.
quite a bit.
That's so cute.
You are in the hard
Laura,
BIT.
we just have to sort of step in here saying, beautiful Laura, she's in her 40s, Cathy's in her 50s, and now Di's happiest day in the world is because Nicola's joined the 60s club. So she's saying we've got like the 3 different generations
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Cool to
And
acknowledge
it's
that.
cool. So
Yeah.
we want to hear
So
about you.
we've got our total support when you say a bit.
Oh, that's
They
so
need me a
lovely.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they
But
do
can
need
you
me.
balance? How did you find the balance? Or how do you find the balance?
Well,
of
so
that?
really it was down to my husband, who's very supportive. So he dropped a day at work and began working shorter hours so that I could step up my career, which was really
How the world's
fabulous.
changed.
I know, we love hearing
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. Didn't used to happen so much.
No, and I get that it still doesn't happen. And I think I'd freelanced for 10 years doing writing. Prior to that, I worked in PR. Always wanted to work at Mamma Mia. It was like my dream destination place to work. So when I got the job, I was like, Jules, you're going to have to help me out here. I want to make this work.
Wow.
And so he did. So that was awesome.
That's
and
it seems like a really good team.
yeah,
that
so it was a
you
good
both
team
made.
approach, and it's still hard. But
And what
yeah.
about you, Cathy? How did
So my kids, my eldest had finished school when I started at Mamma Mia. So he was, I don't know.
I love the way you
2
say that
years.
because I asked you before we went there. How old is he?
Yeah, so he was
So
2
cute.
years into his apprenticeship, and my twin daughters were, I don't know, second last year of school or year 10 or something like that. Anyway, so it was a bit of a juggle as well. And again, I have an incredibly supportive husband and
I love
supportive
hearing this.
family. And my kids were incredibly supportive of me
Great.
doing it, because me joining Mamma Mia came off the back of a very significant mental health issue and breakdown. And I can't tell you a lot about that time, and it's not because I don't want to. I'm a pretty open book about everything. It's because I don't remember the time. I don't have memories from Mother's Day 2012, which sounds like a very specific time, and it was, through till sort of early 2017. I don't have any firm memories of what happened in my life in that time. I know that I was in hospital having a mental health breakdown in early 2015, and I lost the use of the left-hand side of my body. So I had to relearn how to walk and how to use my arm and how to do all the things, and also be a parent. And so I guess me getting back into the workforce was sort of culmination of kind of coming full circle. And my husband had to step up during that time when I was very sick, because our kids were only little, similar ages to what Laura's are now when I was sick. And he had to do all the things. He had to do, breakfasts. He had to do getting them off to school. So that was a really tricky and tough time. But getting back into the workforce was like
Sounds like a lifeline.
Yeah,
Mamma
it really
mia.
was. And it was, a way that I could find myself. And
You could express yourself too, because I read a
Yeah.
lot of your stories, and
Yeah.
they literally were very personal, very intimate and authentic. Your truth, in essence.
Yeah.
The way you wrote. So I imagine that would have been quite. I love this word, cathartic.
Yeah, it
No,
really
really,
is.
yes.
It really
Yeah.
is. And
love
I've
that
always...
word.
It's my fave. It's my fave.
And I've always said that it's really hard to share your story, but if it makes a difference in just one person's life, then it's worth.
I
I
love this.
to you.
I love that.
And even
Thank
what you've
you.
shared already is huge. And I'm sure what you've shared already just now has made difference in people's lives. Because
Yeah.
as we all know, you're not alone. And when you're going through different things and then life hits people in different ways, and at times you just do feel alone.
Yeah.
You know, but it's great that you can share it, and yay, you've come through it. And I guess in life it's an ongoing process with things like fitness
Absolutely.
or whatever. So with that, but
The other things I want to hear is about you. I remember reading about you saying feeling invisible. I think that really got me. I got a bit, not teary, but emotional. Can you talk about what that means about feeling invisible?
Yeah.
It's
so
huge word.
It was and still is. And
Yeah.
it was the final piece that I pitched when I was on staff at Mamma Mia. And I'd been pitching it for a while. I think I probably started to try and pitch that we needed the midlife content.
I think there's a book in it.
From the beginning.
Invisible.
Yes.
And anyway, I kind of just knew that it was important. And I'd had this experience because it was near to Christmas and I was buying Christmas presents, and I'd gone into a very large chain surf store, and I was standing at the counter and I had things in my hand, and the young shop assistant reached around me to serve the young, cute person behind me. And I was just like, oh my God. And I just didn't know what to say. And I know there was a lot of feedback in the comments on that article on Facebook around, oh, you should have just spoken up. But when it happens to you, you kind of freeze a little bit and you don't really know what to do. So I was kind of like, oh, there's a story in that.
Well, what was going through your mind though at that
I
time?
was like, well, can't you see me? I'm like,
but what else?
right.
There was
Yeah.
something else
Yes.
going on in your
and
mind.
yeah,
Was
I
it
was just like, well, am I completely invisible? And I like
to yourself though? Like
But to
ultimately, other
me,
someone else would
and-
walk in, maybe not think
exactly
the same way.
right.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I didn't feel visible in myself.
Right.
So therefore, I can understand how society can overlook you, especially when you've been out of the.
I know. I
Yeah.
just love how
Confidence,
you were
yeah.
really
My
expressing.
hormones.
Is it what's
It's
that
getting me
movie? Is it
teary.
Pretty Woman? You know, going in.
Yes,
You know, like that
spot
sort of
on.
like a big
Yeah.
mistake. And
Yes.
it's-
Woman.
And I'm going, I think this could have been a big mistake for
very
that guy.
true.
But then again, through mistakes, they're gifts. And so the gifts
Yeah.
are that you noticed that, you felt it, and you've written about it. And
Yeah.
then tell us how
Very
that
true.
article went.
Oh my God.
That article was a little bit of a hit.
Yes,
Right.
a big, huge hit.
Come on, Laura,
Yeah.
tell the truth. Come on.
I think it
Yeah.
was like it was one of the top 10 articles that year that it went out.
Well, it
for
got
Mamma
me.
Mia.
It got me. It
I
got
think
me deep.
like millions,
Yeah.
didn't
See,
it?
millions
Yeah.
It's online,
Yeah.
guys. If you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
look it up,
Yes.
Cathy O-Brien, Mamma Mia.
I wrote about feeling invisible in the world, feeling invisible in myself, and trying to find a voice and trying to, really find who I am. And I think I would say now that I'm starting to find that, Laura would probably agree, I'm starting to, be a little bit more visible.
Yeah, and comfortable with who you are and confident and
I'm still not confident.
well, I don't know.
I
I feel like you're getting there.
I have to cut you short there. You're doing a podcast, girl.
Yes,
You're
exactly.
confident, and I'm sitting opposite you. I'm
Yeah.
proud of you. The journey you've come
Yeah.
through, that's just beyond traumatic. And look at you. You're stepping up, girl. You've found your voice. You said it yourself. You're doing a podcast. You've got this one as your wingman.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
go for it. I love the other one, otherhood.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Not motherhood, otherhood.
Yeah, tell
Yeah.
us about that.
Yeah. Isn't
So-
that a great word?
I know,
I've never heard
awesome.
it. Was that you? Did you coin that phrase?
No, I didn't. I've got
you're
to
not
say,
original. We'll move
well,
on
I'm
then.
not. Yeah, no, I'm not original. Well, there was a movie. Have you not seen the movie?
no.
There is a movie called The Otherhood, and essentially, it's it's like the slow breakup, right? It's the slow breakup with your kids. It's like they move you to the sidelines and you don't realise they're moving you to the sidelines. And all of a sudden, it's so, I get goosebumps and it's
more
really
emotional
hard.
with age too.
It's the hormones.
Especially when you've got like sons, I think it's sons because I haven't had the breakup with my daughters as much as I've had
just to
with my
interject
sons.
here, when she's talking about breakup, she's talking about them leaving the
nest a bit.
Not needing you as
Yes,
much.
yes,
They don't
yes,
need you. They just kind of sideline you.
Breakup to me is, I can't get the word. I can't fathom that word because you never break up with your son because I'm a mother of sons.
What was that? What was that other one too? When we had Mel Wilson in, and she's written a book on parenting too, and she's sort of quoting different people, and I think it was Amanda Keller too, and she was saying that's when we also with teenagers why they're so horrible to you.
Yes, because they need to.
So you can then going, hey, this breakup's going to be kind of good, that. So there is a reason for it too.
But a lot of people don't talk about this also. It's also not taboo, but it's just not discussed how you feel. You've nurtured this child all the way through their life. That's like, see ya. And it's not that they're saying see you. They're just on their journey now.
Absolutely. And it's natural, right? It's important. And we grow them so they can fly. It's sometimes just hard watching them fly because you're like, oh, hang on.
The wing could get damaged.
I want to come with you or I want to be on that. Or, their partner becomes the focal point in their life. And once upon a time, they would ask you everything about, do I buy this clothing or do I do this job or whatever? And all of a sudden you are relegated to the sidelines, and you move from where Laura is at the moment, which is participant parenting. So that's what I call it.
Wow.
Participant parenting, because you're really in there. You're doing the do. You have to take them places. You have to do the things. And then all of a sudden...
A bit, as she
just
says.
a bit.
And they get their license, and then there's some pluses to that.
True.
So, Laura, then they can pick you up from parties. Remember that?
fun.
Yeah, when
that's
my son
great.
was about 17 or 18. And I have to say,
Mummy's not well at the party. But we are now.
I have to say about my son, and I love connections in life. How Laura and I actually met is through my gorgeous son Harrison, and he was working with Unilever at an event, and he said he came back. I think it was on my birthday, and I said, "How was your day, Harrison?" He said, "I had the best day." And I think he was in charge. He said there's about 30 women. He said they're all stunning, beautiful, smart, and one of them was Laura, and it was sort of like an event, wasn't it? That was there, and
so it was a very nice
connected with my boy.
I know, it was so beautiful because he was one of the only men there. Yeah, a bunch of
He
women.
loved it.
Yeah. And it was all these gorgeous mostly young influencers, and I was at the upper end of the age, scale. And I'm not an influencer. I was there for Mamma Mia, so it was like a famille, they call it. When you go and get a lovely day out and you take some pics with socials, and it was Dove deodorant, I think was the product, and it was beautiful yoga and
Yoga
lunch.
mats and-
Oh my gosh! And then I sat opposite Harrison at lunch, and he was telling me so proudly about his mum who has this podcast. And he was showing me. I was like, I was like, I have to check this out.
Oh, that's so
And then I started
beautiful.
following you, and then I was like, oh, wow.
And then we became
connection.
And then we became
Connections.
connected.
Yeah.
That's
so
that's
sort of
that's-
like
I love
interlinked
hearing
what we
that.
were saying about letting your kids fly. You miss them at different stages
Yeah.
and letting go, and then when you have let go, and then they sort of come back, and now connections, and it's just wonderful.
On that note, it's really interesting you say that, because as you just acknowledged the 3 decades here, it's funny because you come through that once they leave the nest. And what happens is you build your own nest, and it's all about me, myself, and I nest. All the eggs in that nest, like which we're experiencing now, like the joy of life, watching the journey of your children. It's like joyous every day. You love them to death.
Yes,
But for the first time now, in your late 50s, 60s, you start going, oh, what do I want to do today?
Yeah.
What do I want to eat? I actually only want a salad. I'm not going to be cooking a steak for the guys. Do I want to travel tonight? Yeah, I'm going to do
pluses,
it.
and it's quite funny because you get,
So it's freeing.
you get back at them too, because all of a sudden they have to start looking after you. You don't expect it, but mum has a meltdown or something, and then they'll contact one another and go, right, we'll look after mum. So it's quite funny that all of a sudden. But I want to hear about
rewire
you.
the brain.
I want to hear about you, Laura. So where you're at and how you started, like as a journo, and your English
Senior
is that right?
writer.
And and Tell
for
us a
Mamma
little
Mia.
bit about you. And
So I did like a media studies degree many years ago in the UK, and then I came out here backpacking and met myself an Australian in Sydney who happened to be studying at Newcastle. He's now a GP. He loves to surf, which is why he stayed in the beautiful city of Newcastle.
Great surf.
Yeah,
there.
great surf. And
Great town.
what, you
is.
married him?
and I married him.
Yeah.
And it was
How long ago was this?
we got married in 2003, so quite a while ago. So
No.
yeah,
I was
so-
just saying I did
yeah.
the show there, but
Oh, yeah.
I'd long gone. by then.
Okay.
Wee bit older. Just a wee bit.
Yeah, so I always loved to write, but before having kids, I worked in PR, and Newcastle media scene is not huge, so it was a little bit limited. I tried to crack it, but I couldn't. And then I had Toby in 2010, he's my eldest son, and I started writing about parenting and my experience of it and how hard I found it. And that was really around
Where
the
were you
time.
writing? Who for? then?
Just pitching it freelance at the time. So I did stuff for Essential Baby, which is a website. I think it's been bought out by Channel 9 since then.
So family-oriented articles.
Family-orientated articles I felt at the time weren't as big as, I mean, they've kind of come and gone really now. It's all about TikTok and social media and putting your feelings out that way. But then it was blogging was a thing. And Mia had started Mamma Mia not that long before, and so I remember I was desperate to try and get an article on Mamma Mia because I thought they are my people, that is my tribe. I just knew that that was the kind of target audience that I wanted to speak to, but it took me ages. And the only reason I got into Mamma Mia as a freelancer was I went to, I tried pitching all these, this is a silly story, I tried pitching all these parenting angles, couldn't get anywhere, nothing, complete dead air, even though I'd had success elsewhere. So I was like, how am I going to do this? Okay, I got an invitation to go to a sex party, right?
Oh,
as you do, killing kittens, which is so random, right?
What's it called?
Killing kittens.
It's called Killing Kittens, and it's
Whoa.
a
Gotta
British.
say, I don't know.
that one,
I don't know
That's
what.
the most random thing I've ever heard.
I know, and
Super random.
I don't know what circles Laura hangs
Okay.
in, but I don't get regular invites to sex parties, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right.
I don't know. Now we're free.
Yeah,
We're
well, here you go.
Well, we might be
It's,
open to a few different
yeah,
things.
I
you know.
say
Never say
keep it
never.
open. Yeah. So Killing Kittens. So it started because the founder, a lady named Emma Sale in the UK, I interviewed her for The Good Weekend, and she was really interesting, obviously, and she was bringing Killing Kittens, the brand, which comes from a phrase about when you masturbate, God kills kittens or something. It's something like that.
Wow.
I've never heard of it before.
It's probably
Wow,
a
I've never.
cat.
Have you ever heard
Producer
that?
Sarah's killing herself while
I thought I was out,
thing.
but
Catholic
I've
girl.
things roll
Okay.
differently in England.
Yeah,
out.
maybe that's it. It's a British thing. I'd never heard
Wow,
of
they can have it.
So she started this brand. It was all about putting women at the centre of pleasure, and kind of the parties were all about the woman. You could only go if you brought your man with you or as a single woman. So there was like a safe space, I suppose. Anyway, she was bringing it to Sydney. The launch was happening. She got in touch and said, would you want to come along and review the first party? It was in Surrey Hills. I was like, oh, okay.
It's funny telling your husband that one.
Well, bless him. I know. We drove down to Sydney and he sort of dropped me off at the sex party. He was like, have fun.
But not too much fun.
He said, "Oh
yeah.
my god."
And then I have my little 4-year-old in the car park.
Here's a little sandwich I packed for
With
you.
the red lipstick on, you know.
Yeah, high heels.
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
true. It was true like that. You had to wear a mask, like a masquerade thing. Honestly, it was the most
Wow,
eye-opening
what a
experience.
hoot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so then I wrote that story and pitched it to Mamma Mia. Within 2 hours, I get an email back from Holly
See,
Wainwright.
that's
Oh,
such
sure,
a
we'll
story.
take that.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
That's
Why
interesting,
not?
isn't
Yeah.
it? Sort of point of difference that way. And
Yeah, so I-
quickly just tell us, so what
Yeah.
was it like at this
Oh,
Killing
yeah,
Kittens?
well,
Wow, really? I mean,
Yeah.
give us
I
yeah,
thought
right.
okay.
Nick would bring it back around because I'm happy about
I
that.
know, I want to know. Like,
I know. We
particularly-
started with parenting. We've moved on to sex
yeah,
parties.
exactly.
Okay.
Rose.
Yeah.
Look, it was really interesting. I met the
Very
woman.
diplomatic words.
Yes, that ran the parties during the day. I went over to the flat where they had it, or the apartment. I shouldn't say flat, it sounds really dingy. It was very bougie. And she was setting it up and she was putting like condoms in bowls, and it was all very, she'd made the beds all nice and decorated, had a bar and a cocktail bar in the corner. So I kind of interviewed her during the day, and then I came back at night time and sort of waited for people to arrive. Like, nice. I got there really early, of course.
Like dying.
You're nice
Nicola,
and proper.
I've been here for an hour.
And I kind of she arranged for me to talk to a couple of people, like a couple and a single that knew I was a journalist. But everybody else, I didn't reveal names or anything like that, and I just chatted as you would.
What were they doing?
Oh my God, it was they were the most interesting bunch of people.
Well, they're not sitting having a cup of tea and a bicky.
No.
What were they doing?
Drinking, talking, flirting. Everyone was moving
Right.
around. There was
You can do that in a
probably-
pub. What else
Yes.
were they doing?
Well, well.
Come
it
on.
kicked over. Okay. You just wait till you get to it.
Yeah.
I think around like 10
There's a
o'clock.
build-up, Jodie.
Yeah, I'm
Come
building
on.
up,
You know.
Yeah. There was a point and it tipped. Everyone was chatting. Everyone was there for different reasons. And then suddenly, someone sort of gave someone the eye up. They went upstairs and I was like, oh, I've got to go and see what's happening up here. So I followed them upstairs.
Did you have 72 champagnes before you went? I would have.
Yes.
had.
And so
Yes,
were you all
yes.
voyeurs in this sort of killing
so,
kittens thing?
Well, I guess
Meow,
it's up to
meow.
whatever anyone wants to do it's very
So
very
it's
person
group sex
independent
sort of
led.
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Does this
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
does this
yeah.
still happen now? You know,
I-
like in other
Don't look at me.
Like, I mean,
I really
Yes.
don't know.
I love Kathy. Kitty, Kathy. Don't look at me.
I don't have that answer.
That's so good.
sometimes you know,
So
don't
you must
judge
have
a
been
book by
shocked.
its
Come
cover.
on.
You
Even
never
I'd be
know,
shocked,
you
and
know.
I've lived a big life.
I was a bit shocked, but
Yeah.
I'm
And
always
they were
just
fine
interested.
that you were staring. Like,
Oh, I think some people like to be stared at. I feel that was my vibe. There was a couple of very voyeuristic. No, is that the
I
right
had to
word?
dig out this article.
Yeah. Yes, I'll send it to you. It's called I Went to a High Class Sex Party.
Well,
or
we've got a
something
couple
like
of
that.
articles we will
Yeah,
include
yeah.
too, because I want
Yeah,
to put the
that
invisible
one-
one and
Yeah,
that one
and that's
too.
my
I think they're really.
We'll
they're-
actually put that in the
We'll
notes.
put them in the show notes. Yeah,
People
yeah.
can read what happened in good detail.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
But
I
there
saw some
wasn't-
flesh.
I mean, well,
I
we-
saw some flesh. Yeah.
We just recently interviewed an amazing lady on our podcast, Anna, who is, I can't think of what the business is called.
Her confidant.
There you go. And it's
Listen.
an escort
Amazing.
agency for women. So, yeah. So
Oh,
she,
I heard that.
Yes,
podcast.
yes,
How-
yeah.
And she really enjoyed it too.
Yes,
yeah.
I
So
thought she was a great talker.
yeah, amazing. And what interested
Tell the
me
listeners a bit
about-
what
yeah,
the
what
services that they provide.
Yeah, so she offers services for all different types of women, corporate women who have no partner, don't want a partner, but need someone to go with them to a show or out to dinner.
Yes,
or,
it's not always sex.
No.
Yeah.
Or people that want to hook up and have good sex, as she says, guarantee of a good shag.
And I'm sure it's rare because you've, and I'm not, it's like, don't
Well,
take me the
good
wrong
sex
way.
is rare.
But it's been for men forevermore. It's been
yeah,
for men.
yeah,
And
of
now,
course.
all I'm saying now,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, it's okay now for a woman to
Yeah.
say,
Absolutely.
I'm going to make a phone call because I need
Yeah.
someone for this particular
Yeah.
reason.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of, she just considers herself like a connection
Yeah,
person,
she works in
She just
PR or
puts
HR.
people in
Good business.
contact with other, women in contact with a man who is guaranteed of whatever she wants, and it's female led. So at any point, the women can change their mind. They ring Anna, they've got her number, they can say, hey, this isn't going anywhere, I don't want it end.
Which I think is essential because safety is first.
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's
Yeah.
She's got
So-
good parameters that she works for.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and
Yeah,
it's really,
I think it's great.
Yeah,
really
I
do.
think
I'd like
it's
to know the job
interesting.
description though when they're actually applying for it. When you're going, guaranteeing good sex. I mean, really? So how do they know?
Well, that's like
there a
this
try
situation. Do you know what you're making me think of is, as Nicola and I went to
I
see a
love
fabulous
it.
film. Actually, Emma Thompson was nominated for a Golden Globe for it. Good luck to you, Leo Grande. Did you see it?
I haven't
Oh,
seen
that's
it.
amazing.
No,
You must
I
see the
really
film.
wanna see it.
She's
Yeah.
a woman that's a widow that was in a loveless marriage for forever,
one.
like 40 years or something.
Yeah.
And she calls a male
Yes.
escort, and the film's all centered around this. And Emma Thompson, she's Sense
It's
and
beautiful.
Sensibilities,
Yep.
Love Actually, whatever. And she's there, just to cut it really short, basically she gets the male escort. And in summing up, because the film's remarkable, summing up, she says, well, for years I've been lugging around this body.
Yep.
And what is it? I wrote it down. She goes, and now it's a playground of delight.
yeah,
Love that.
Discover you.
yeah.
And she's actually naked in front of the
And,
mirror.
and she's looking at herself in
And
the
I
mirror.
burst into tears
Yeah.
because I
Applause.
thought, how many women are in
Yeah.
not so much a loveless mode, but haven't sat up to hand up, we've got to make changes here.
Yep.
Let's do something about this.
Yep.
The other thing is she'd never had an orgasm in her whole life.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
In her whole life.
Yeah.
She didn't know what it was. And so in the movie, it's all about that pleasure and discovery. And finally, and she's found, her authenticity and, self-love and self-worth.
Well, Anna talked about
Yeah.
many of her clients are
Along
like
those
that,
lines.
along
Yeah.
that line,
Yeah. And I think we talked too about with Anna like how judgment and sex and pleasure for women is such a kind of generational thing, and how when we worked at Mamma Mia we talked about how we were working with all these young women in their early 20s and they were just passing around those vibrators like they were lollies, like who wants one, look at
Have
this,
you
it's
got
amazing.
this one? Do you need this one? And
like, whoa.
honestly, and there were some days where there were more dildos on the bench
Than sandwiches.
than there were beauty products.
And isn't that interesting too
It's
when you do
great.
go into the workforce and got the
Good.
different generations that way.
Yeah, see,
Whereas
we're
also when we were younger too, and
Oh
even
gosh,
and
it
when
was
my
like,
mum, God
oh
love her,
God,
and she
no,
was all
taboo.
sort of still, she was a feminist and ahead of her time, but still it was always like you can get a reputation, Nicola, if you do this.
Yes.
Totally.
Whereas
Yeah.
now it's just sort of
It's something
completely
good that's
different.
happened in the world, that it's
Yes.
okay
Yep.
to have pleasure as a woman. Like, it's
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
guys.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
all right. I give you permission
Yeah.
Now,
to
I
give
wanna
yourself
hear
permission.
about how you decided to come together and call it The Change. your
Yeah.
podcast. What's
so-
that about?
Well,
Yeah.
so our podcast is about midlife women, and it's about the changes in life, the big changes, the little changes that make us, break us, and shake us, is our little tagline. But I was watching a TV show, and it's on SBS, and it was called The Change. It is a British comedy. It is hilarious.
Might have seen it.
And it is absolutely hilarious. This woman, and this is not a spoiler, it's in the first 10 minutes of the show. She's the main character, and she is there. It's her 50th birthday. Everybody at the party's having a great time, and she's cleaning up after everybody at her birthday party. And she walks into the house, and she has this notebook, and she has been keeping a record of every minute of mental or emotional load work, that extra work that women do in her marriage. And she decides, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And she buggers off to a little town somewhere in the British countryside. And it's hilarious. And the show is called The Change.
Wow.
And Laura and I had been talking about a podcast for a long time.
Since our days at Mamma Mia.
It's a very powerful
Yeah.
medium.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we'd been talking about it, and we just knew that in some way, when we met at Mamma Mia, and like Laura, I was like, I just knew that we would stay friends forever. And we'd always been saying
Beautiful.
we wanted to work together in some way, and it just didn't happen until I saw this show. We'd been kind of floating ideas and different names, and we just couldn't settle on one. And I rang Laura and said, I've seen the show and it's called The Change, and that's what our podcast should be. And within days, Laura had everything done.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're
Just
the
set it up.
you're like
Well,
straight away like
yeah.
the chick that does
There's
that.
one that's more motivated.
Yeah. And what about with you personally, Laura? Like with the small changes and the big changes. So can you tell us a bit about that in your life?
Yes, for sure. So I think, interestingly, when Cathy wrote that article about feeling invisible, and it went mad.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah, and I loved it. But at the time, I think I was in my early 40s, and I still felt very visible. And,
Yes.
And then the last, I'd say 12 months, a couple of things had happened. A good friend died. I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis. So I was like, things are kind of changing for me. Like, I'm getting older. And
How old are you?
I'm 45. So, I'm still, I don't feel
She's a baby.
old.
Yeah.
You're
I
20
know.
years younger than you're a bubba dubba dubba.
But it was like I suddenly
love the way you said
switched
that.
into
So
like
good.
this,
I get it. Yes.
new
But they're real
phase of
things,
life.
'cause that's a real medical
Of course they are.
That's right.
It's
So-
acknowledging
Yeah,
change.
and it was just
Yeah.
like that. Oh my God, I get it. I totally understood
Yeah.
where Cathy was coming from. Suddenly, it all made perfect sense. And I kind of went from being, I suppose, part of that Mamma Mia community as well. I left that job, and it was tricky I just felt very.
You left.
I
You
left.
decided. That's a big call.
It was a big
That's
call.
a big change.
Yeah.
in your
Yeah,
life.
it was
Yeah.
a really. It was like.
What was a prime motivating factor
I think it was
behind
just it was lots of things. I think the juggle with the kids. I was coming to Sydney every week, which is quite a big commute from Newcastle.
that? Oh, it is. Believe me, I know.
Yeah. I just felt I was feeling less happy with the work situation, and my manager had changed a couple of times, and as much as I still love the brand and Mamma Mia itself, I just felt it was time for me to go. So I think that's been the biggest change I have felt more recently is okay, now I'm in a new phase of life, which coincides with us launching our podcast called The Change. So it's
Which
quite
was what?
convenient.
Was in
January we dropped.
January this year.
Yeah.
You're,
And
you're
what's the-
newbies.
What have you just sort of takeaways from the people that you've chatted to? Have you got is there a general theme or takeaway from people that
Best
you've
and worst
interviewed,
interview
like
too.
what sort of what's is there a thread?
Is there one that you interviewed did that you won't actually put up? Don't tell me what it is.
no.
Great.
But what is the
That's a
thread?
positive.
Is there a thread between people with the change, or is everyone's just so different?
Look, to be honest, our biggest rating podcast, I guess, at the moment is with a grandmother.
Yeah.
That's our highest listen.
And what's the inference with grandmama?
Well,
Like
I
dating?
just think
I'm a
it was-
grandmama.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe
it
I
was
should do one of
yes.
those. I'll be grandmama
Yes, yeah.
in your podcast.
Yes, yeah.
Nicola's not
Yes.
far off. She's 60 now.
Just reminding everyone.
You have to ask my single children about that. So.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm not sure why that
I
particularly
mean, what was
resonates.
the interview? I mean, she's a grandma. And
So she's Jessie Stevens' mum. So I think a lot of people
Anne,
know
she's
Jessie
great,
Stevens,
yes.
and her mum is
Yeah.
fabulous,
Anne.
Anne
Yep.
Anne
You've had
Stevens.
two sets of twins.
Yes, she
Yes.
did.
that's remarkable.
So we spoke about that, and she was
Bingo.
great.
How big's the
Yeah.
pram? Like Little Britain with the pram.
Oh my
10 miles
Wow.
east from
Yeah.
west.
And
So
had
what
some
was
really
hers? What was her
amazing advice for younger women, like around that you don't need to have it all at the one time.
Yeah, she was very no fuss.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was great. And I think also people know her through the Out Louder community, so that probably was
course,
helpful in its
yeah.
And Jessie's episode, we did an interview with Jessie about
How old
motherhood.
is she, by the way? The
And
grandmama.
60s,
Yeah,
yeah,
mid-
60s, in her 60s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it.
And I think generally across the board, everyone has change in their life, and that's something that I don't think we talk about a lot in society.
We talk
I
about
think
this,
we,
don't we, Jane? Not
I mean,
necessarily
you-
menopause.
yeah, but and
You got to
for us,
identify that.
yeah,
it's
that's
not just
right.
menopause.
Yeah, that's
People
right,
go,
yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
the
yes.
change, the
Yeah.
big M. But
Well,
it's not.
and that's why we kind of went with the change, right? Because it's a bit of a play on words. Because
Yes.
when
We were
you
discussing it, weren't we?
grew
Yeah.
up, and
And
when
you
I
can shoot
grew
some
up,
questions our way if you want.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
when you guys grew up and when I grew up, certainly it was like the change, and it was spoken about in very hushed
Very much
terms.
so.
And it's only, in like recent years, I would say even 5 years, 10 years maximum, that people are really openly talking about, oh my God, I'm going through,
Yeah.
or
Well, we're all a work in
questions.
progress till we
That's
die. So
right.
there's
Yeah.
constant change.
That's right.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it's the ebb and
Yeah.
flow of life.
Yeah.
The river that flows, sometimes the dam comes through.
And I think too,
Bingo, got to make a change.
Yeah.
the older that we get, like that, and as you were saying, it is a privilege to be alive,
Yes.
like sort of with every decade there. But I sort of think also change is one of those ones that can hit you at every stage, and it is one of those ones, it is inevitable, and it's sometimes expect the unexpected, and you just got to, because it is just that the truth of life. And, so it's such a great thing to talk about, because, you sort of think you're rolling in this area and you've got it all sorted, and then next day, bang.
Yeah, something
and
happens.
you're in another
and that's
direction
life.
there.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
it's all
that
a
really
mindset.
is,
Yeah.
It's everything in life is a mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either you attach to it or you move it on.
Yeah.
And a readjustment, the settling time, and a grieving
Reset,
time.
reset,
Yeah.
reset.
I
Yeah.
think you have to sort of acknowledge the certain times that you
Yeah.
need to look within, and then you reassess,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
then just go bounce
Yeah.
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
one to the other.
Yeah.
I think, have you got questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
can we
Oh,
ask
go
you
ahead.
about
Oh, yes.
Okay, you
yeah.
shoot. Go.
Yeah,
What?
well, we always ask every guest, and I was listening to your episode with Dr. Ginny Mansberg.
Isn't that
this
great?
morning.
Yeah,
Great great.
It's
Love
rated.
her.
We fangirl
Yeah.
her,
Yeah.
and everyone's
She's
listed.
just rated
and she has
beyond.
become my
Yeah.
doctor too.
Yeah.
Oh,
So there you go.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's really interesting and obviously very knowledgeable on the menopause
Very.
because of her book. But,
Very.
and obviously you spoke a little bit about your experiences with the change with that episode. But I was just wondering if you had any takeaways or anything you want to pass on to women about your experiences of the change, aka
The only
peri
change
or
I
menopause.
can honestly say
Yeah.
is chin hairs.
Oh,
my
my God. I'm talking about that. Bloody chin hairs.
You know, you pull up
that
at the
is
lights,
so
Yep, yep,
funny.
and
Yeah.
the angle of the sun.
Yeah,
and
I
you're
was
like,
doing that on the
"No,
way up."
When did the lights go red? And the
know.
rear
That's
vision,
so
I don't care who's
true.
around me.
It's only girlfriends can say
So
too. Joe will
funny.
go, "You look so pretty, Nicola. You got your makeup all right." And she goes, "Oh, you've just got a little bit of shadowy there."
At the beach,
And
I
I
go,
go,
I
"Oh."
can't talk to you longer. There's
Oh,
one on your
exactly.
left
Yeah.
side
Yep.
of your chin.
That's it.
Do you want me to get it for you? It's just my pet hate.
That is so
Yeah.
funny.
But yeah, but it's, I don't know, like I'd never had menopause other than wrinkles and thinning hair and a little bit of cellulite here or there. I'm like, what the hell did that come from? But again, I will never underestimate the unbelievable ways and that many women attach to menopause with all the different ways that, like one girlfriend that turns psychedelic red at dinner and she's not embarrassed, it's menopause. And you just go, this is cruel. I never sort of had any symptoms like that. So I really do empathise with any women listening that have, but I feel quite blessed. And Nicola's very similar.
Well, it's funny. That's why it's a really good point because
Yeah.
I thought I shared the same as Dar going.
Well, you did
we
until
sailed through,
now.
but it's one of
Yeah.
those things going. I actually didn't because I didn't know. So part of the symptoms because I wasn't
Mm.
aware of them because
Yeah.
we just didn't hear was they go check under the hood because you don't have the obvious symptoms. Oh, I didn't of the flushing and the hot
Yeah.
sweats or whatever
Yeah.
at night time. So I was going. I sailed through it, but it is a bit like you were saying with a bit of osteo. There,
Yes.
mine was bone
Yes.
density.
Yes.
You know, and your
Yeah.
skin and those things there that if I had addressed it earlier, had actually checked there, it probably would have saved me. And I did have a hip operation last year.
She did.
So it is so. I think for
But she is
listeners,
60 now,
even
though.
if you don't have the obvious, it's so good. And there are like with Dr. Ginny, there are so many things that you can. So it's not just the obvious symptoms. Get it all checked out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
checked
because
out.
now
That's
we
it.
can
Yeah.
then sail through
Celebrate.
it.
Yeah.
Celebrate.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
whatever you need to
Yeah.
do.
And there's so
The change is fun. I mean, it can be
really
hard,
is.
but it's fun at the
Yeah.
other side.
Well, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Well, we
fine.
both had marriage breakdowns. That if you call, if you, I mean, if
So that's a
not
big change.
But
Well,
that's
yeah.
yes.
Like
Yeah.
that was massive for me.
Yeah.
It took a big toll. It was 36-year marriage and huge
Yeah.
toll.
that's so-
But I've come out the other side now, and
Yeah.
I've never been happier in my whole life.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And again, back to watching my kids' journey in life,
Yeah.
the love.
And it's the process of going through
Free.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm into a
Free.
third act because I had a 25-year marriage and then
Yeah.
I had a 4-year relationship.
Yeah.
And so at this stage in turning 60, that's like two big changes.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Really big changes.
Yeah.
And what you're doing and from one day going one way and the other way. So it's like, and it can be tough at times, but then it's so much joy as well because you're going, wow, it's a whole start of a whole new
Yep.
fresh slate again.
Yeah.
Let's start
So
again.
true.
I love that.
You know, which is
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
good. So I
Yeah.
actually sort
Very
of say
cool.
like the third act for
Yeah.
me.
Well, that's what
Kind of
we
fun being single again.
when you're in
Yeah.
the thick of it, you don't think you're coming out the
where
other
I had
side.
been
but you
single
always,
for a while
Yeah.
after a long-term
most
marriage.
do.
Yep.
So it's kind of, you know, I'm to the third act
Watch out.
now.
Yeah.
And we're going
Yeah,
to
you
Europe.
can
Watch
go-
out,
yes.
Europe.
Girls
I'm
on
Europe.
tour.
I'm in my
Oh,
early
la, la,
60s, she's
oh, la, la.
60, and we're going to Europe.
We're
like,
not giving away
like
too much
two
of our
30-year-olds.
plans of where we're going. So I'm going to start with you, Cathy. If you could share a back fence with anybody on planet Earth, who would it be and why?
Gosh, I've been thinking about this because I know that these are your signature questions. And I honestly, it's so hard because, you know, on a practical level, I would love it to be my best friend because, you know, I would love to just be able to, you know, run on over and just sit on a lounge and not have to drive there and all of those
We're
things.
lucky,
But
aren't we?
Yeah, we're really lucky.
But oh, look, I think at the moment I wouldn't mind sharing a back fence with Miley Cyrus.
Oh,
Now, why is that?
Yeah.
I just
La da 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 da
Oh, here we go.
da.
well,
This is
yeah.
your favourite
La
song,
da
isn't
da
it?
da da.
I'm loving her music at the moment, and I'm loving her coming into herself, like
The
coming,
flowers.
like right out of that Disney mold, right out of the. And I think, you know, she went through a wrecking ball stage,
True.
but I think that she's really coming into her own now. She's a bit older, she's a bit wiser, she's been through relationship breakups, and I just think
She'd be a fun neighbour.
That's cool.
She'd be a
I
fun
reckon
neighbour.
she'd be a fun
I can
neighbour.
talk about things that you don't understand. It's all that
Isn't
song
this good? Well,
is-
that's one of
it's-
your
it's
signature
a
songs.
reflection of what's
Isn't
going on
Isn't
in
that
her
the
mind.
song that so many women dance to
soul,
even by
really.
themselves?
Soulful, yeah.
Blasted in the lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the one with
Dancing
Diane Keaton
away.
dancing to it?
Yeah.
She's got a post.
So good.
I thought it was freedom and hence a reflection of where she's
I love
at.
that.
So
No,
I
the
think that's
pictures,
great.
yeah.
I love that.
You
yeah.
shoot now, the next one.
I get lost in them and I go, yeah, question.
Let's go, Didey.
It's if you had the opportunity, what would you say to your 20-year-old self?
Oh, my 20-year-old self. Gosh, I would tell her that it is all going to be okay. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on. I had mental health when I was younger as well. I just didn't realise it. And yeah, I would tell my 20-year-old self, just hang in, hold on. It's a roller coaster. And you're not always going to enjoy the roller coaster that you're on, but you'll come out the other end and you'll be okay and you'll be stronger for it. And yeah, you'll make a difference.
And roller coasters can be fun too.
I hate roller coasters, but
It's the anticipation.
What do they call it? The
The
ride.
click,
Yeah.
click,
Yeah.
click. I get so excited. That's me.
You know what?
Like-
It's the ride of life.
Yeah, and then it goes down.
You know,
Yeah,
now, what
it
about
is the ride of life.
I'm going to reverse it there with
Keep
Laura.
going.
So
Here we
I'm
go.
actually
You're
going to
going
start
young.
off. First of all, we're going to swap it round. Go,
Yeah.
What advice would you give your 20-year-old
Okay.
self?
Well, Cathy just gave the most beautiful answer, and mine is just a little bit sillier. But I think that
You've got the best ones with these kittens.
it's along those lines.
Kittens,
Yeah,
geez.
I think I got married at 24, met my husband at 22. If I could tell my 20-year-old self anything, it would be a bigger slut. Just go out there. Yeah. I did not have
That's
enough
wisdom.
Yeah.
You look at this English rose. It's probably the last thing I
the best-
expected out
Oh,
of
sorry.
you. Was
I think it's great. Look, Miley Cyrus
don't think that was
and
my
be-
problem.
And be the biggest slut. I think you win. I think you win.
oh,
of
sorry.
all the
okay,
ones
we
that-
need to
okay.
just elaborate because
Okay.
we're in trouble,
Yes,
aren't we?
okay.
With
Tell us
time.
why.
Oh,
Just
yeah, I
to
just didn't have
elaborate,
enough,
we
you
need-
know.
Didn't have enough study time.
Yeah, didn't have enough study
What,
time.
just being a good girl, you mean?
I
Be
was
a good
girl.
girl?
Brought up as a good girl, you know, and I
Yes,
had a
yes.
boyfriend when I was 16 to
Yeah.
20, and I'm like, what
You're a
a
bit
waste.
predictable.
What a
It's like,
waste.
yes.
Yes. And then I had a couple
Are you a
of
slut
years.
now? or-
Well, within the
Would your
confines of
husband-
marriage.
Would your husband say you're more of a slut now?
Yes, probably. I think I just lead into what I enjoy more. I'm more confident in myself.
Good
for
girl.
sure.
Well,
fine.
that's to be
Wow.
honoured.
Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic.
Will you ask the lucky
what's
last
the- which
question?
one? What
Come
one
on,
is that?
darling.
Which
the
one am I
best
doing?
one, baby.
Oh, okie dokie doodly 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 doo.
Yes.
If you had the
Diddly-doo.
opportunity to meet anybody in the whole world over the back fence, who would it be and why?
Okay, I'll keep it quick. It will be my sister, I think, because she lives in the UK,
yeah.
and so do my parents.
Get it.
Obviously, and a lot of our friends.
So
But
the
I
only
think
sibling?
only sibling.
No.
We've both got two boys. Like, you know, what are the chances? And unfortunately, she lives all the way over there, and I would love to share that back fence and just be able to go over and have a little cup of tea.
We'll pick her up at the airport for you.
Well,
What a hoot.
ladies, thank you so much for coming
It's
on.
been fun.
And
I feel like I've
it's
just gone for
been-
coffee with
I
you
know,
two.
And I would love
Really?
all our listeners to write in and tell us, you know, what about their biggest changes as well.
Good
You know,
one.
Yeah,
I
that's
really
a
would like
goodie.
to, sort of
Yeah.
to
We'll
hear
feed
that.
these two little
And
cuties.
it's just been a really joy. We're all
we in
for
trouble,
we're all
Sam?
for women supporting women, women supporting men.
Well, these two have got
together.
two beautiful
40s,
bloody
50s,
husbands.
60s, you know, it's
do.
just great. And change is good. It can be tricky.
It's
but,
the greatest.
Thank you, and it's been a great
Embrace
change
it.
having
Thank
you
you.
guys. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And so
Thank you so
everybody,
much.
thank you for listening. Don't forget to rate and review. It really makes a difference. I mean, you ladies know, don't
Yes,
you? Like it really
please
does. So,
do.
and we like the stars. I think it's 5 stars, but we always shoot to Didey, and you know, it's come on, Didey. We've got a double act here. You know,
well,
what
it's 5.
Yeah, what
The
should they all
maximum's
put
5,
in when we've
isn't
got
it?
Laura and Cathy?
I think. What's your age, Cathy?
53.
Let's celebrate 53.
Woohoo! 53 stars.
About 53
That's
out of
great.
5, I think would work.
Yeah,
Right,
53.
well, let's run
Yep.
with Let's run with that one.
We
We'll,
love Cathy's
we'll
journey.
be in your ears next
So happy where
Monday.
you're at. Yeah, and-
Thanks for
and
listening,
thanks for
everyone.
listening. Ciao.
Bye.